few more people will be joining us shortly, but we have a good amount of folks tuned in now. So thank you so much for joining the first ever Front Insider user group event, also known as the Front Insider Meetup. So my name is Joe, and as mentioned, thank you so much for joining. This is our first ever Insider Meetup, so we really appreciate that you are here with us, hopefully sharing some awesome best practices with one another, getting to know each other and learning a bit from our special guest today. So I'm Joe, and I lead customer marketing here at Front. I will be our MC and our slide Sherpa for today. I'll also be frequenting the chat. So when and if you have any questions, go ahead and toss those in there and we'll address them when we can. I'm very, very excited now to introduce Sylvie Wolfe, who is our head of customer success and solutions, as she tells you a bit about what the day is going to look like. So Sylvie, over to you.
Thank you, Joe, and very excited to have a slide Sherpa. I think this is my first experience with a slide Sherpa, so quite excited about it. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. We are really excited to have everybody here together. Like Joe said, I think it's a great opportunity to get people across the globe and having some similar challenges and conversations together. So we should have a great conversation today with Traffics. We will spend about 30 minutes on that fireside chat, another 30 minutes on breakout groups before we wrap up. And because this is our first Insider Meetup, I'd love to run through a few of our guiding principles for this conversation. So one of the most important things at Front for us, one of our core values, is transparency. And you're going to see that in our product as well, of course, but we want to be open and hope that you'll be open with one another. The best way that these events have high impact is when we're all sharing, we're engaged, we're having the conversations and diving in. So it is one of those areas where you get out of it what you put into it. And to honor that openness and that culture of transparency, we do ask that we honor confidentiality of anything that's discussed today so that we're able to be as transparent as possible about what's going on with each of your businesses. And we're so happy to have all of you here. We know that you made trade-offs to make time for this. I know that people are incredibly busy, especially in the logistics space over the last couple of months, I guess 18 months here today. So we really appreciate that you're here. Thank you for doing it. Let's commit to respect the time together by being fully present. If anything comes up that you have to attend to, no worries. We just ask that you be discreet in needing to hop over to anything else. As mentioned, any questions along the way, please feel free to use the chat window. Myself and Joe will be monitoring it throughout. And without further ado, I'm very excited to start our fireside chat with Traffics. And welcome to Mark. Mark is our Traffics guru. You can see he's very on brand right now. I love the background for Mark. Mark is a loyal Front customer and champion. He's the Chief Technology Officer at Traffics. Give you a little bit of background. Traffics is based in Ontario, founded in 1979, and it's the leading asset-based third-party logistics provider. They've been serving clients for over 41 years. Mark has been CTO at Traffics for 2 years, and his experience in logistics goes well beyond that. Mark, I'll ask that you unmute yourself and give your first hello while we take down the slides.
Hello, everybody.
Anything that you'd like to share about your background that might be relevant to the folks on the call?
I think the only thing worth mentioning is that the logistic industry is somewhat new to me in the last 2 or 3 years. Prior to that, I worked in another service-based organization, including the travel industry, which is similar in some ways, but logistics is definitely a very unique place to be.
Yes. And we're very excited to dive in. I have to share, and Mark, I think you know this, but we asked people on the call if there were questions in advance, and we got a flurry of questions. So I'm really can tell that this group of people is excited to talk and to learn more from you. I think it would help if you could give a little bit of an outline as to what your use case is and how you're using Front today so that we have a good baseline understanding.
Sure. So the best way that I described it to my team when I joined Traffics is we were in email hell. We're at the time we're an organization of about 300 users. And we had nearly 1,000 distribution lists, and that was the standard way of doing things. You get a new customer, I need a vanity address. Let's create a distribution list, add all these people to it. And when we started looking at the email activity that everybody had to deal with on a day-to-day basis, it was overwhelming. It was quite a bit, and for the most part, a lot of people didn't have to see those emails. So if you think about all the time you add up of people who actually have to see a message, read it, and say, no, this is not for me, or somebody's replying back with a thank you. And then again, everybody has to read that and say, okay, no, thank you, click that. And then everybody has to manage all the rules individually in all the mailboxes. So when you add all that up and we looked at the whole organization, it really wasn't a scalable solution for us to move forward with, especially when we're in such a high growth place. We had estimated an average of about 29 emails per distribution list on a daily basis. So when you add that all up, around almost 1,000 distribution lists, 300 users, it was a real time waster. And of course, the other problems with that, using again an email platform that was really designed in the 1960s, 1970s. There was no accountability, there was no reporting, and we really needed a more modern platform that would address these pain points.
That makes a ton of sense. And I love the description of email hell. I think we all understand that feeling and know exactly what you're talking about there. Can you tell me a little bit about what some of the business goals are and how you've been using Front?
Sure. One thing we want to do, so we're our organization, we're based in Ontario, though we've got about 15 branch offices across North America, including Mexico, several in the US and several in Canada. One of our goals we want to do is standardize all of our branches. We didn't want all their branches working completely independently. We wanted to have some sort of structure around that. So we really, the standardization we arrived at is that every branch has really 3 team inboxes that they work out of primarily. One for carrier sales, one for customer sales, and a third one for operations. And those are really all of our 3 main buckets that we have across there. So we took those 3 standard mailboxes, and what we did is we now identified, and as we went through all of our many distribution lists, we said, okay, which one goes where? And we started sorting them that way. The other thing we wanted to standardize on was some of our standard operating procedures, particularly as it related to after-hour supports. We've got a team that works in Europe and even in South America to help with after hours, and we needed that continuance with emails and issues that customers had. So we've got that seamless transition over through different support hours.
That's great. And I know that that was an area that a lot of people had questions on the call, with how that collaboration works between a support department and a carrier services department. So appreciate you sharing how you're doing that. Can you tell us a little bit about your overall journey to Front, how you came to Front, onboarded, et cetera?
Sure. Yeah, this is probably one of the first items I noticed that we needed to address when I started at Traffics. I have used other team-based email platforms in previous lives, particularly in the travel industry, where same thing, we're a service-based organization where we had to provide that service. Looked around the landscape, and it was Nate from the Front team that reached out. We started that conversation, and really after a short look at Front, it was apparent that Front's doing something different that's not seen in some of the other common applications that we'd see in the same space, particularly as it relates to conversations, the tagging, and the rules engine. The rules engine was really key for us because that's where a lot of the horsepower comes in. That's really going to cut down a lot of the noise for our staff.
That's really helpful. And along the lines of the rules engine and general assignment, et cetera, how do you maintain clear ownership of conversations with all of the different teams that you're talking about and the different ways in which they're interacting with Front?
Sure. So for the most part, each of our teams is based on by branch office. So within there, we have those 3 team inboxes that we work out of. But because we're all on the same platform, we have the ability to reach out to other branches, include those on maybe on certain loads where we need help with another branch. We sometimes will need help with finance, for example. So it's very easy for us just to tap in and pull those individuals into a conversation from another branch or another organizational unit within Traffics.
Oh, please.
The next big thing is also with rules. We were able to set up our rules so that we can make sure that the right people, the right staff have the visibility into the right emails, regardless of which branch they belong to.
And are you using any integrations to help support that?
Yes, we initially, and I think this is one of the learning experiences we had with our rollout. We initially thought we could provide the training. We'd get our subject matter experts in each of our branches. We'd train up our front leaders, or front ninjas, as we called them, and the intention was we let them manage their own rules. And I think that was a mistake, and I think that's something that we're correcting right now. And what we've done is we've gone ahead and built a custom integration with our TMS. We use TruckMate right now. And with that, we want to have an actual attributes right within when a staff member is looking at the customer record right within our TMS, we'll actually show the front tag in there. And in addition, it'll also automatically tag the sales rep associated with that account. And we also allow our staff the ability to add additional participants to emails right within our TMS. So all they have to do is manage that within the TMS, which they're working on all day. We have the automation set up so that we export these attributes out of our TMS into a cloud-based system. And then we set up a webhook on front. So that's every email comes in. What we do is we do a lookup. Does this incoming email have a vanity address that's particular, or did it come from a customer domain name that we have associated with that customer account? And that's what would trigger the rules on there. So we've really put that same power to our users, but we made it simple enough so that they can do this right within the TMS, which they understand. So I think some of them became a little bit overwhelmed with front rules. So we've clawed that back into an IT function. We'll manage that for them, but we're giving really the power, empowering all of our staff to be able to manage the rules right within the TMS.
That's great. And I love that philosophy of meeting people where they are and not trying to change their process. If your team's already in the TMS, there's plenty of ways to access and use Front and get value from it. I think that it was really interesting to hear you walk through some of the rules and automations. Are there any other rules or automations that you can share that you've set up in Front?
Certainly. Aside from the usual, I guess, customer tagging, which we use either based on the from domain name that the email came from, or the to address that was used as a vanity address, which we simply just send to one of the team mailboxes. We also use rules for manual tags when somebody actually goes and manually adds the tag to a customer or to an email, that it automatically adds the participants and the assignee as appropriate. We also use it for what we call after hour support, and in our case, we call those hot tags. So every branch has their own hot tag, and what that means is if somebody tags something as hot, it means it's going to instantly provide visibility to the after hours team, and they know that they've got to watch this on their shift. So there's no longer the need to provide people with separate Excel lists of please track these loads. All they have to do is simply tag those emails as hot, and then the after hours team knows which branch that belongs to. They can see the entire correspondence for a particular load. And they can do this all again with a seamless transition to and from the after hours team.
That's excellent. It's been such an interesting topic in this industry in general, with how much activity has been happening, that the real differentiators and ways that people are driving success is with customer experience. So I love the way that you're really prioritizing these are urgent, this has to happen, so that there's that very seamless handoff and you reduce that risk of dropping something not getting handled in the appropriate amount of time. It's really how we're seeing people in this space win and be successful in the competition. Any tips on getting the fastest responses to customers along those same lines?
I think the most important piece is really making sure the rules are accurate. And this is another learning that we've had with the rollout is when we initially ask people, all right, here's your customer ABC company. Who do you want this to be assigned to, and who do you want to be as participants? And overwhelmingly, again, because we're coming from a distribution list mentality, we had, I think, far too many names added to lists. And what this created was a little bit of more noise than was necessary. It's really, I think the biggest obstacle we've had is training our staff. Just because you're not a participant or an assignee for a particular email doesn't mean you don't have access to it. So it's just a matter of training them of what tags means. And when you start telling them that tags are really just the old way of doing folders, and it's automated because we've done all this through rules, it becomes a lot easier. And I think the missing link that we had was also being able to provide staff with what is the tag I should be using for a particular customer. And now that this is in the TMS, it becomes much more easy to do because they can very easily look that up themselves.
I know that we have some people from our onboarding team on the call, and I see lots of head nods that change management is hard. It's people are used to a certain way of operating, and being removed from the distribution lists and having to learn where you can get access is definitely a part of the change management experience. One of the things that I think is pretty unique about Traffics and about this space in general is that there are a lot of people out on the road, and people out on the road who need access to front. How have you streamlined that communication with drivers?
With drivers, I think the biggest feature that has helped with that is with all the integrations we have with Front. We implemented SMS for every carrier sales team in each of our branch offices. And I just looked at the stats before the call, and for the month of June, we sent about 10,000 SMS messages just for the carrier sales team. So that's been a real time saver, and it also prevents people from having to use their personal cell phones to keep in contact with drivers. So having that as a channel right within the carrier sales team for every branch has been a real big win for us. It's made things a lot easier. We're currently looking at implementing WhatsApp as well as another channel for each of them because a lot of the drivers, particularly for their Mexico teams, they really rely on that a lot more than SMS. So again, having all those options and having all those different channels of communication with drivers has really been a real big time saver for us.
It's great, and it really goes back to that earlier theme of meet people where they are, make sure that we're giving access in the way that makes the most sense for whoever you're working with.
Yeah.
In advance of this session, we got a lot of questions around metrics. I know that data is king. That's a big area of interest for people these days. What are some of the useful metrics that you use and pull out of Front?
I think from there's a couple different lenses we can look at this. When we look at a particular branch, we can obviously compare different staff members within those teams. Say, hey, why is one person doing 3 times more email volume than this other person? Looking for those disparities. We're also able to use that to tweak some of our rules as it relates to assigning tickets to certain people or assigning emails to certain people. And it also becomes very interesting when we start comparing branches amongst each other. You think, well, why is this one so much higher than that one? And you start looking at the other metrics in terms of gross profit, for example, revenue, and then you compare that to email volume, and you start seeing some of the disparities and understanding why that is. Is it certain customers? Is it the team? Are they using other methods? Are they trying to circumvent Front and use Outlook? So you usually find a lot of important things there. Response times is another big one. Again, Traffics is a service-based organization, so we're very keen on knowing what a response time and what that customer service is with our customers. The other interesting one came with Front's new reporting revamp that happened in the last few months, was some of the heat maps. So we could click a button and we can start seeing in a very neat grid how busy our branch is by hour, by day of the week. So that was really cool, and that was a bit of an eye-opener. And I think for the most part, everybody would agree that mornings are busy, but why are Tuesday mornings more busy than other mornings, right? And you can start seeing some of these patterns that we just didn't have visibility before because traditional email platforms just don't provide those kinds of metrics.
I'm laughing because Tuesday mornings, when we also use the heat map internally, I love it. And when I looked at our support team, absolutely Tuesday mornings, there is something about it. And I was on a phone call with a customer yesterday and we had the same conversation. So I think it is a shared phenomenon that Tuesday mornings are. Send all of your teams extra coffee Tuesday mornings to get them ready.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you learned about Front after using for several weeks? I think it's been great to hear some of the lessons learned and things that you're changing and shifting. Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway that my corporate trainer and I had was that we could have done a better job with the onboarding, particularly as it related to our staff. Our mistake was that we put too much onus on the branches to here you go, we'll train you up and off you go and let us know if you need help. They required a little more care and feeding. And I think again, this automation integration with TruckMate is going to go a long way. That's going to significantly improve the experience for them. I think for some of our staff, there are some key concepts that are still a little bit elusive for them. They're still very used to, I want my Outlook, give my Outlook back. That's all I'm used to, and it's really helping them understand the differences between the two systems, tags versus folders, rules, how to find emails by customer or by tag, very basic things that just need a little bit of reinforcement for some of the users. And I'd say about a good third of our users require that extra care and feeding. Another third, they seem to just pick up on a little bit more. I think some are just a little more tech savvy. But I think it's important to be keenly aware of these different types of users you have within the systems and make sure you cater to their individual needs. We've talked about putting too much responsibility on the branches to manage their own rules. And we have recently implemented or added a front coach on to our team. And what the mandate of that user or that person is to really look at front as a whole from our organization, and also start creating some scorecards that we can compare some of our branches to say, why are those guys lagging a little bit more than let's say our branch over there? Start looking closely at, are they actively using conversations? Are they actively using their tags? Are they still using Outlook? If so, why? And understanding some of those differences. So, and I think that the last thing that I've learned is that front, unlike Outlook and other traditional email platforms, there's really a lot of change happening a lot. There's a lot new features. There's new designs that are coming out, and staying on top of those and communicating those to our users is important because they're improving so much so quickly that we need to get that message out to them and let them know that, hey, did you know you can do this? And hey, did you know there's this new feature that will save you a ton of time? So staying on top of those is almost needs a dedicated person for this, just to manage again the change and making sure that everyone's getting the most out of the platform.
It's great to hear. And I know that our product team will be so happy that you can feel the impact of some of those changes that are coming and the updates, et cetera, to the product. So I loved hearing that. And I know that they will love hearing that too. I want to open up the chat to questions and go ahead and hear from people. I'm sure that there are some follow-up questions that people will have for your use case, any expertise in front. Anything else that you'd like to share while we're waiting for some of those questions to come in?
Just as an overall platform, overall, I would say that the one message that staff need to buy into is what the benefits. How is it going to benefit an end user? How is it going to benefit our customers? How is it going to benefit our carriers? And I think starting with that message is the big thing, is why are we using front? And that's the first question that needs to be answered. And they need to put that one to rest before we get into all the details and start overwhelming them with all the feature sets and all the cool things that you can do with the front platform. They need to first understand and be able to answer that question.
I think that is totally critical. And I'm seeing lots of head nods in the video as well. We've got some great questions in here. A great question, actually. How does front behavior, is there a specific front or behavior or feature that helps you win those Outlook lovers over to front?
I would say the number one feature is conversations. The ability to collaborate with staff internally, especially when you're looking to, for example, cover a load and you need help from let's say another branch office. That becomes so easy and so empowering that you can do that without having to forward a message. Just by adding a person, they right away get that whole view into the thread and that conversation history that took place. So I'd say that's probably the number one feature, is the collaboration. We are a team-based, not just within branches, but as an organization. And that's probably been the number one help for us.
Makes a ton of sense. And I see Husnay also commenting in there as well, that comments really do win over a lot of users. I think makes a ton of sense to me as well. A great question. How did you get rid of the distribution lists? So any examples of how you separate different groups like CSR, dispatch, after hours? Sure.
Each of our branches, really, we gave them three standard inboxes, three standard team inboxes. So for example, Chicago.operations, Chicago.carrier sales, and Chicago.customer sales. So those are the three main boxes for every single branch. What we then did is we took each of our distribution lists and we went through one by one. It was a very painstaking process. And we basically mapped those. Which group should that go to? And we pointed them to one of the three branch or team inboxes per branch. And then from there, we started building rules around those. So those are the big buckets. And then that covered probably about 80% of our emails. For then, we had after hours, which pretty much went away because they were all now working as a context within the branches. So that's where hot tags came in. So we still do have an email address for after hour support. It's still more of a traditional email list because, again, as a load comes in, that needs to be, let's say, track and traced over a weekend. We just have to add a hot tag, and that provides them visibility to those branches or to those emails.
Very cool. Very cool. I think this is a somewhat related question. We have a customer who is in the process of implementing Salesforce to understand the relationship with customers. How are you balancing communication tracking with your CRM, TMS, and front?
So communication tracking with our TMS is going to be simplified because we've got that was the missing link that we had. It's going to link a customer record or unique customer record with a front tag, and that front tag will include all those emails that people are looking for. With respect to CRM, that's going to be a bit of a moving target because we are in the process of implementing a new CRM platform in the next few months. And that'll look a little bit different, but we'll probably follow the same model as we did with TruckMate in that we have that linkage with our CRM platform used as a front tag. So if I look up any unique customer record in our CRM, that'll tell me the front tag. If I have the front tag, I can very easily find that within our email platform.
Great. Thank you for the clarity on that one. Follow-up question on metrics. Are you able to measure response time and handoff between teams? And do you have any advice on that regard? I know that handoffs are a hot topic.
That's a great question, and yes, we have had to look at that on several occasions. For the most part, we've been doing that on an individual basis. So we would look at an email activity. We could jump into that thread and we could see what the difference is. When were they looking at it? Were there comments? Did they update the let's say the location of it and provide updates within the TMS? Did they do that within front as through comments? I haven't found one silver bullet report that we can write that actually shows the handoff between teams. So it has to be looked at from either a customer specific way, or if we look at, in our case, the hot tags that we have for after hour support for the tracking and use that as a starting base for a subset of those emails that we want to look at.
Great. I think we heard a feature request in there for a new type of reporting tool. So we'll be sure to pass that over to the team. Great. Well, we are going to move back over to our breakout sessions. Mark, it was such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you very much. I know that this was a valuable session across the board and really enjoyed speaking with you and hearing more about your experience within Front.